Welcome to the Living Proof Recovery Podcast. We're your hosts, Brian and Evan. So tonight we had one of our viewers send in a few questions that she would like us to give our experience and our opinions on. So we'll go ahead and dive into that. Take two.
Yeah,
So
take two here.
take two. I screwed some things up like normally happens. All right, question number one. What fear did you have as a newcomer that turned out not true?
I I guess it would be just like trying to think back to the very first time I ever walked into a meeting, which was like 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And only thing that comes to mind right off top is like thinking everybody was going to be judging me when I came in, and that just wasn't the case. I'm sure some people did, but ultimately it was like you're just welcomed in. I was not expecting that, right off the bat. Just not the fear of the unknown, just everything in my head. They're going to be looking at me all weird and judging me, and what if they don't like me? What if, all of those type of things, I guess, would be the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, so if you're new, we are judging you.
Yeah.
We're taking bets. What's funny is they say don't judge anybody, right? But then they tell us immediately, stick with the winners.
Right, yeah.
Right? It's like, so we're judging people.
Yeah.
But no, like, that was my answer as well, is because I thought I'm gonna walk in and all this group of people are over here laughing. They're laughing at me. They're gonna think that I don't belong here. Whether it's because I have drugs in my story as well, or because I wasn't homeless. Because I wasn't whatever.
Right.
I didn't have 13 DUIs. So. I kind of had the same thing of thinking that, this low self-esteem, that this is going to be one other place that I don't belong. And like you said, it was the total opposite. Everybody was very welcoming. We're glad you're here.
Yeah. I guess one of the other things that that just came to mind was when I first came into the rooms, and I would hear everybody talk about God.
Mm-hmm.
My thought was, well, they're just trying to shove religion down my throat.
Right.
So that's another one that I thought about in the beginning, and
so as we kind of talk about this stuff, like more stuff's popping in my head. And one of them was, I don't know if I guess it was a fear, but the thought that the 12 steps were going to be this huge task that I would never be able to complete.
Yep.
That it would take years, and that there's no way. I did have a fear of having to make amends. I never really had a fear of taking an inventory or sharing the stuff from my past. Like, that never really bothered me, but the amends process early on, and that's the reason why the steps are laid out in a certain order,
right.
But that was the first thing when I'm reading the steps. I was like, oh shit, like, has anybody else read this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like, you really expect me to go do this? Like, I'm scared to death to do that.
Yeah.
To go face people and try to clear things up. So that was a huge fear, and it ended up not being true. It ended up actually being a really good process. So that was another big one for me. The religion thing too, or the God thing.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I don't really have a relationship with that. So how am I going to? Well, there was a fear also that, yeah, this works for you, but how the hell is this going to work for me? Because on paper, logically, it doesn't make sense. You look at it and you're like, that's going to cure or help me with my incurable disease.
Right.
Like paying people back and telling you all my fucked up shit and asking God for help. Like, that's going to fix everything. Right. And it did. You know,
Right.
so but it doesn't
Crazy.
make sense because most things in the spiritual world don't make sense.
True.
You know, so
True.
but I was scared that I'm unique.
Yeah.
It worked for everyone, it worked for millions of people, but not this guy. All right. Question number 2: what does it feel like to finally have acceptance? And I guess that's assuming that we have it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, and
Do you think that
ultimately,
means to like have acceptance as far as through daily life or to be accepted? I guess it could be either way.
I guess it could be either way. I guess for like acceptance through daily life, it's always a practice.
Mhm.
Ultimately, it's not like because
Yeah,
there's
that
times
don't
where
always happen.
no, there's times where it might take me a minute to accept something,
Yeah.
whatever
Like
it
fuck
is.
this.
Yeah, whether it's if I catch a new resentment or whatever it is, sometimes it takes some time. Sometimes I'm able to do it immediately and just accept everything for what it is as it comes and know that as long as I trust this process and trust God that things are going to work out,
Right.
But it is I'd be lying if I just said that I just accepted everything immediately
Right.
because I don't.
Yeah, me neither.
Some depends on the situation,
Yeah.
I guess what
What
I
about
can
acceptance as far as your diagnosis?
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I
But
don't have
that's
any
like the main thing that we have to
accept.
accept,
Right.
right? That
Yeah,
I
I
am an
had
alcoholic.
this time around that was there was no which I've talked about it
Right.
before.
Yeah.
I've always had a thought of I could drink again or smoke a joint again or do certain things, and this go around all of that was squashed immediately.
Right.
As soon as I stepped into as soon as I picked up the phone this last time to go get back into treatment, it was like, okay, motherfucker, like, so that was I don't have a problem with that. I am
Right.
a fucking alcoholic and a drug addict,
Yeah.
hands down.
Yeah.
I don't have any problems
I
accepting
fit the
that.
criteria. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, just acceptance in general of like just like some of our readings, the acceptance. Acceptance is the answer. And but it's a practice.
Hmm.
Even 4 years in now, it's not something. Like I said, it just depends on the situation. I would say.
Yeah.
But I can like say if I catch a new resentment, right, and somebody does something and I'm feeling resentful over it, um, I might not just accept it and be able to move on right away, but I guess I can, if it makes sense, I can accept it and not punch you in the fucking throat.
Right.
I
So
can
that's
accept
something-
it that I'm just upset with you at this point,
Yeah.
but not let my actions not do what I want to do to
Yeah.
you right now.
Yeah, so
know?
that's something I was going to bring up is just because, so acceptance doesn't mean agreement, right? So just because I can accept what's happening or whatever you're doing or whatever you're saying, that doesn't mean that I have to agree with it,
Right.
right? Because and that was something that I used to kind of struggle with is like, how am I going to accept this? This person, you know, I just, I, I don't agree.
Mhm.
And my sponsor was like, you don't have to agree, but you do have to accept that this is the reality. Like, this
Right.
is what's happening.
Yeah.
And can you do anything about it? And it's like, well, no, I can't.
Mhm.
I can agree with how I react to it,
Right.
or I can do something about that, but I can't necessarily change someone's mind or make someone think differently or behave differently. I don't have power over someone like that.
Yeah.
So I had to understand that. As far as the diagnosis goes, there's no question whatsoever. But yeah, like acceptance, it's tough sometimes, man.
Yeah.
It really is. And I've noticed that and you touched on it, whenever I'm having trouble accepting something, it's because typically I have a resentment.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I want things to be different. You know, I want things to go different. They're not going my way. People aren't behaving the way I think they should.
Hmm.
You know, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, but what we can do about it in those times is we can apply the program. We can apply the tools because I've had a few resentments lately, and I've been able to apply the program. And after maybe a couple hours of, you know, the justifiable anger that I like to feel, that I have, that I sit in, you know,
Yeah.
finally it's like someone will say something, you know, like, dude, maybe you just need to let it go. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're right. Like, this isn't serving me.
So I guess like when it when it comes, and now that I'm thinking about it, when it comes to like resentment. So I guess we do even realize, like I'm sitting here saying, sometimes it's hard for me to accept this situation, but at the end of the day, when I look at it, I've learned how to, through this whole process, even when I am angry, I guess that is acceptance. Like I'm accepting it for what it is. I'm not going
Yeah.
to let it dictate my actions.
Yeah.
And I'll use my wife as an example. Something can happen and she'll be hyped. She'll be hyped up for quite some time.
Right.
And like, I'm just like, it is what it is. Like, I'm not happy about it, but let's go. You know what I mean? So, I guess it is acceptance, but I guess there's just different levels to it.
Yeah. So there's awareness plays a big factor in it, right? So I'm aware today, most of the time, that I can't control this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we see a lot, or I see a lot, and I catch resentments over a lot, is when I see other people trying to fix, manage, and control things and not stay in their lane.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, man, they're not accepting this.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and then I am not accepting that they're not accepting it.
Yeah.
You know, so I need to look at that. You know, I need to look at me because I can't do anything about them. You know, so
And I'm not saying my wife doesn't accept things. I'm not saying that. Let me clear that up. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, she can get,
will
she
accept
expresses
that
it.
clarification?
Probably not, but she expresses herself in different ways than I do.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's not gonna. She might be hyped up and upset about it, and she'll put it out there and release it verbally, and I might just analyze it internally. Is the difference? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's another important point, is that we're all different people.
Yeah.
You know, we all have a common problem and we all have a common solution, but sometimes we get to that solution or deal with that problem in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that. Like, sometimes it's okay to feel anger.
And that
You know.
might be the difference between Kentucky and New York.
Could be.
Could be something with that too.
Could be. Yeah. You know, so yeah, I mean, I think acceptance is definitely an important thing, especially accepting our diagnosis. You know,
Right.
for the newcomer, if they can't accept that, then they're not going to accept anything else that comes their way. You know, any of the step work, any of the suggestions, any of that stuff is not going to matter if they can't accept what they truly are or what they truly have.
Yeah.
You know, so
Sorry, I just
you're good.
got a text message. Looks like my daughter's caught an elbow
Oh,
during the ball game tonight, and gonna have a nice shiner when she wakes up in the
you're
morning.
going to have to accept that.
Yeah,
elbow.
she's gonna accept it.
All right. Number 3, I believe, is what we're on. What moment did you realize recovery was actually possible for you?
When did I realize it was possible for me? Definitely this last go around when I was given a gift. to go through this treatment program,
Mhm.
you know, because I wanted to stop, and I knew I couldn't stop on my own, right? And the Robert Alexander Center, we had talked about, I'd been there before for a short detox stay, and then eventually ended up relapsing again. And they didn't want to let me back the second time. They were gonna help me.
Mhm.
They were gonna help place me somewhere else though, not at their facility. And then the whole insurance issue being the beginning of the year, and insurance wanted a bunch of money up front. They ended up scholarshiping me into their program. And I remember when that case manager came in the room and said, "You're here for 30 days." Like I said, this weight was lifted off of me. And I was like, thank God.
Right.
Thank God I'm here for 30 days now, that they scholarship me in there. And I knew right then, and even as bad as I felt and how sick I was in that moment, at that very moment, I knew that's when it was really possible for me. I never had that feeling before any other time I tried to get sober, or treatment centers that I went to, or jail, whatever it was. And in that moment, I don't know how long I had been there at that point. I'm not sure. It was sometime
Probably
within the
less than a
first.
week, probably, right?
Oh no, this was like within the first couple hours. Like
Oh,
they
was it?
they
Okay.
literally were bringing me there just to
Oh,
get
just
me
to-
off the street,
Right.
because my wife told me get the fuck out,
Right.
and I had nowhere to go. So they basically just brought me there to keep me there
Until they could figure
until
some
they
shit
could
out.
figure out what they were going to do with me, or who was going to take me.
Right.
So that was my moment of when they told me, okay, they're now going to scholarship you and give you another shot after you left the first time they gave you this opportunity. That was when I was like, okay, now I can really do this.
Right.
I'm here for 30 days. I can get myself together and get ready to do the work when I get out of here. That was when like that moment of clarity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was literally, it wasn't long, maybe 4 or 5 hours that I was there.
Right.
It was pretty quick into it, because don't take them no time to run insurance and see what's
Right.
going on. And
Yeah.
I think once they realize, okay, his insurance just starting the beginning of the year, they want all this money up front, not just from us. There, it's going to be anywhere he
Anywhere
goes.
it goes, yeah.
So they just gave me this gift, and right there it was like, okay. As much as I talked to the owner even before I'd went in, and I told him and begged him, like, if you give me this opportunity, I'm not gonna let you down.
Right.
And that goes back to me also now. I don't just owe this to myself. I owe this to myself, number one, but I owe it to so many other people. And I'm so grateful for that place, and I always will be, for several different reasons.
Me too.
But that last go around, like, that was when it happened for me.
So this kind of ties in with something I was talking about earlier. Is I think when it happened for me, when I realized it was actually possible, is when I made my first amends.
Mhm.
I wasn't out of treatment very long. And so in the past, the previous time when I'd worked the steps, that's where I'd quit step 8. I made a list and I said, fuck this. I said, I'm not doing it. This list can fuck off.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not doing this list. So I went further than I had before, and kind of faced that fear that we were talking about earlier of what I thought was true and what wasn't true, and I realized that fear was false. And when I did that, the way that I felt afterwards, I was like, oh, maybe this thing really does work, because years of hatred, I won't say all of it went away, but a lot of it went away, and it was, the amends process was very well received. And then that person turned around and made amends to me, and that shocked me, because
Yeah.
that was something that I never saw coming, and I was like, wow, like there's actually some power in this program, and so then I was kind of like on fire after that. It
Right.
was like I want to do another one of these,
Mhm.
and then I went and did another one, and I was like, I want to do another one, and like that's typically what happens. We go into that process with a resentment, and like in the fourth step, we go into that with a resentment, and we leave with amends to make, and then we go make them, and then it's like all this stuff is just cleared out,
Mhm.
and like I can actually start to feel,
Yeah.
the power that we're looking for. So that's when things really made a turn for me, where I was like, okay, maybe my sponsor isn't full of shit. Maybe all these people in these meetings that talk about how great their life is and how the best thing that ever happened to them is they're an alcoholic. And because I always thought that was bullshit, right? When I heard it, I'm just being honest. When I heard that, I was like, you're a fucking liar. Like this is the curse of my life.
Right.
What are you talking about? But it's been turned out to be true.
Right. I think for me, when the only reason that I think it happened so quickly for me this go around is because it wasn't my first time, right? I had worked through the steps on multiple different occasions on multiple periods of sobriety. So I had already experienced what that can do for someone's life, and it did all the incredible things for me in the past when I wasn't even really all in.
Right.
You know what I mean? I always went into it with some type of thought of this isn't going to be forever. And I experienced what this program could do for me. So this time when I knew like this is it, I'm all in. I'm pushing everything to the middle of the table. I think that's what helped me come to that so quickly because I'd already experienced everything half-assing it per
Right.
se, right? So
I don't know if this question here really applies or not, but it says when you wanted what helped you stay? Sorry, I'm trying to read this. It's tough. What helped you stay when you wanted to leave or give up? Did you ever have a point where you were like, I don't want to do this? Like this is cool for now, but I don't want to do it, or
yeah.
you know,
I mean, this go around, no. Like I know on this go around, I'm not going nowhere. Like
right?
somebody's gonna have to take it.
Yeah.
That's
So something that popped in my head about this is there have been times, not where I wanted to quit recovery or the program,
Mhm.
but I needed to change. It's
right.
like
Yeah.
I need to find a new meeting, or I
Yeah.
need to get a new sponsor,
Mhm.
or I need to. But I never wanted to give up on the program. But it's just
Yeah.
like there are things that sometimes that happen. We might outgrow a certain situation that we're in,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
sometimes we have to make changes, and
Yeah.
that's okay. But I never wanted to actually give up.
Yeah.
Um, I know that is the case for a lot of people,
Mhm.
and I think typically that's because that window that we always talk about is closing on,
Mhm.
and they haven't uh, dove in. They're just getting their feet wet in water a little bit. They haven't
Right.
dove all the way in. They're kind of half measures,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, I'm not working the steps. I don't have a sponsor. I'm going to meetings, or I have a sponsor, but we're not working steps because I'm
Yeah.
still an IOP, or they're kind of testing the waters a little bit, but they're not fully all the way in. And I think usually that thought of I can probably do this on my own because
Yeah.
what am I really doing?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
so I think that kind of creeps in that becomes problematic
Mm.
for people, but that
Yeah.
wasn't my experience.
Right. Yeah. And I even as far as like you had mentioned, wanting a change. Like I love meetings. I will always go to meetings and stuff, but even doing this was something that was kind of like, all right, I need a little bit of a change though. Like I don't want to give up, but
Right.
I wanted to try, and you as well. We wanted to try to reach people on a bigger level
Right.
than just in a meeting, you know. So we wanted to put ourselves out there to try something else. But I don't. This go around over these last 4 years, I can't say there was a point to where I was ever like, okay, I want to give up. Even during hard times, giving up hasn't been an option.
You know, I think it's important to say too that we did this, like you said, so that we could spread the message to more people. You know, and we've had several people reach out to us and tell us that this has helped them.
Yeah.
You know, and just want to make clear that we don't do this for any like financial gain
No.
or some kind of, or we're not even promoting certain programs. We're just talking about the ones that we're involved in.
Right.
You know, because we both believe that there's multiple ways to sobriety.
Yeah.
You know, so I just want to kind of throw that out there. So I had a guy that I used to sponsor reach out, and I showed you his text the other day that he's been listening and it's been helping him because he hasn't been able to make it to meetings. So I was like, oh, cool. Like, that's awesome.
You
You
know,
know,
and this just popped in my mind. And I wish, do we have a book in here?
it's in my car.
Okay. I wish I could. I don't know. It just came to my mind, and this is our show, and I guess I'll say it. And if we feel
Let it
like
rip.
if we feel like it, I shouldn't, then we can do something about it. But
Except
so before you were there the other night, and I got up and shared my story for a celebration,
Mhm.
and while I was looking through the book before the meeting, I read something, and I, I can't remember what page it was on, but the way it ended the chapter was that something. I'm not going to try to go word for word with it, but it literally said something along the lines of, we hope that it was talking about reaching the public.
You know what you're talking about.
I can't remember word for word. I'm not that type of.
Said something that we hope this book can reach. I can't remember it either.
And
But I know what you're
it was
talking
talking about reaching the public,
Yeah.
to spread awareness and
Right.
show them that this thing does work.
Yeah.
So, how else? What better way is there? How do we reach the public if we keep everything we do behind closed doors?
Yeah. I can't.
How? You know.
can't.
So I've been thinking about that a lot, and I don't know why. As many times as I've read the book, that stuck out this time. Something new sticks out every time you read it.
Yeah.
But that stuck out to me because of conversations we've had lately and things that have happened. But that's why my first thought was like, like how else, like how do we show the public? How do we get this to the public so they can see that there is something magical happening here
Right.
if we don't go outside of our rooms?
Yeah. So it's important to understand that. So it's been bugging me. You know, I had to call my sponsor, do some 10-step material over this type of stuff. And at the end of the day, right, number one, this is our recovery podcast.
Mhm.
You know, we're the ones that invested in it. We're the ones that invest our time in it. And we can talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to say it. You know, I can talk about whatever I want. If someone doesn't like it, they don't have to listen. You know, and that's okay. You know, people can have their opinions, and I have mine. You know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I read something that Dr. Bob had wrote about traditions, and he said that we need to be able to practice above and below the tradition. Meaning, what is the spirit of the tradition and what is the letter of the tradition? It's kind of like what's the spirit of the law and what's the letter of the law. It's like things today. I don't think when they wrote those traditions that they anticipated a thing called the internet,
No.
a thing called the podcast. Um, and times were a lot different. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need to adhere to certain traditions or the traditions, but it also like times are different now.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is the motive? What is the actual meaning of the tradition? Things like that. It's like we're not on here to promote anything. We're not on other than recovery.
Right.
This isn't an AA podcast. This is a recovery podcast. And we're sharing our experience. And that's what we're supposed to do, to share our experience. We're not using anyone's names, no last names, nothing like that, So, yeah, like I just think that our primary purpose is to carry the message,
Right.
So times are just different, Now, that doesn't mean that in their traditions, they're not rules. Those are two different things. And we don't need, I'm not going to come on here and just blatantly break traditions, at least not intentionally. Like that's never my intention. But that's kind of what I was talking about earlier when, acceptance, sometimes people just need to stay in their own lane,
Yeah.
but I need to accept it and sometimes they don't, so, but at the end of the day, I can talk about whatever the fuck I want to.
Right.
And maybe that's not the most spiritual way to go about it, but I know for a fact that I've reached some people that we have and that we've helped some people. So at the end of the day, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I
mean, even people that are not, we have people that are not in recovery that listen to the podcast. And I've had several people who aren't even in recovery reach out saying, keep going, what y'all are doing is something great, so.
Yeah. So, I got a couple more things here. What's it at? What is the biggest key to staying sober long term? And I guess we should clarify like what long term means, right? I think long term means, for me, permanent sobriety, actual recovery, not white knuckle, getting through the day. Long term, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a certain amount of time. Like, oh, you're in long term recovery because you've hit 1,000 days. Like I think it's different for everyone long term. Like if you've never been able to stay sober longer than 2 weeks, 6 months is long term for you.
Right.
Just in my opinion.
Depends where you're at in this journey, like you said.
Right.
So for me at this point, I guess I would say obviously I have to stay in fit spiritual condition. And I have to keep giving back. I have to keep, the service. I have to keep trying to spread the message and help the next alcoholic or addict, whatever you may be. That's where I'm at, and like you said, it depends. And I remember, even years ago, like there was times where it was like, okay, don't use. Just don't put the first one in you. Just hang on, even if,
if I could do that, would I need to be here?
Right. So, it just depends where you're at that time, and what is long-term sobriety?
I don't know if there's some arbitrary number.
Yeah. Like, I don't know.
You as
this is.
Because I think the quality is so much more important than the quantity.
Right. Because I've put multiple years together on different occasions, and this go around has been the from quantity and quality, like this has been the best experience I've
Right.
ever had in learning how to live in recovery, and staying sober. Um, so I'll just keep doing what I've been doing, and I'm sure it'll evolve. It
Mhm.
always does. It evolves over time. So I don't know what long-term sobriety is.
Right.
I don't know if I'm in it at almost 4 years now.
Yeah, I think, like I
I
said, I
don't know.
think it's the quality of your sobriety because I think, now, it's just me personally. Like, I know I have met people with 7, 8, 10, 15 years that are sick. Like they're sick.
Oh
But I know people that with a year sobriety that have more quality sobriety than those people with 7, 8, 10, or
Yeah.
15 years. So the length of time that you're sober is not really indicative of how healthy you are.
Right.
You know,
And I
so
think, um, I know me personally, I have a great example of that in my life. And, you know, he- he's now 40 years sober.
say 40 or 4?
40,
40. Okay.
right? Um, but I remember a time when I was a kid, not knowing that he was 20 years sober.
Right.
And I didn't know he was in recovery. I didn't know
Bad
any
kid
of this.
crazy.
And, he was my little league coach, and he'd
Right.
be getting ejected from little league games and getting
Trying to fight the umpire.
yeah,
Yeah.
like just crazy and cussing everybody out, like just an angry. But he was 20 years sober at the time, and he was so angry and just full of chaos. And now at 40 years sober, he's a completely different man. Has completely transformed into something else. So like I don't know what he was doing at 20 years sober. I just know he was sober
Right.
at that time. I don't know what he did for his recovery. I mean, I know, but I'm talking about like as far as what all he did for his recovery.
Right.
Like,
Like
yes,
daily.
like
Right. Yeah.
daily,
Right.
right? And so I get to I've seen that over, you know, he's been sober my whole life,
Right.
and I got
It's so
to see,
crazy to think about.
I know, and I got to see this person not knowing at 20 years sober how he was to how he is today, and it's incredible.
Right.
So in my mind, when I hear long-term sobriety, that's where my mind goes to, are people with 20, 30, 40, years
Right.
sober. That
Yeah.
in my mind, that's long term.
Yeah. I sometimes I still feel like I'm new.
Right. Yeah.
But to me, it feels like I've been sober for an eternity.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it feels like not very long.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like it just
Right.
for some reason, I think a lot of that's just because I worked in recovery, so I was around it.
Yeah.
And I stay involved, so I'm around it all the time. So it feels like I'm an old timer, and I'm not.
Right.
I'm not even
Right.
close. But I think for me, the key to it is steps 10, 11, and 12. And those things keep me in fit spiritual condition, which is what you touched on. Is
Right.
if I'm continuing to take my inventory, watching out for the fear, the dishonesty, the selfishness, the resentment, and then I'm staying prayed up, meditate, and of course, go help somebody. If I'm doing those things, then I stay spiritually fit, and it keeps me sober,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps me growing. Because those aren't just maintenance steps, like they're growth steps. I want to grow in sobriety. So just not staying stagnant, staying hungry for new things, wanting to have new experiences. And, like you always say, man, like saying yes. Stuff like that keeps me um, humble, keeps me grounded, so, and not forgetting where my power comes from. That not thinking that, puffing my chest out saying, look what the fuck I did.
Yeah.
Stayed sober another year. I didn't do that. God did that. So understanding where all that power comes from.
Yeah.
Is what is a big key for me. And it's really a really cool thing is like, so I gave Jace a token the other night, Gave Jeremy one the month before.
Mhm.
I get to give True one next month. So I wouldn't be able to do those things if I was just content with what I had.
Right.
Because I wouldn't have said yes. I'm like, I got what I need. I sponsored a couple guys. Let somebody else do it. I wouldn't be able to experience those things.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key, is not forgetting what I had to do to get to this point.
Yeah.
And just continuation is really, you can sum it up in one word: continue. Just keep going. And if somebody's listening to this and they haven't got to that point yet where, they don't, that continuation, they're like, just keep going, man. Like, don't stop. Because when we stop, it's so hard to get going again. It really is, dude. It's like when you're going and you're flowing real good, and it's like you're going with the current, and when you stop, it's like you're going against it. And it's really hard to get kick-started again and just get going again. But if you don't ever stop, it's easy.
Right.
You're just coasting. Not coasting like I'm not doing nothing, but like you're just flowing with it. It's so much easier that way to just not give up and don't stop.
Yeah.
So at least I think that's the key for me.
Yeah.
At least.
Absolutely.
I feel like I had one more. Let's see. That's a dumb question. These aren't the one that she submitted. These were just some I was looking at. So I hope she doesn't think I was saying her questions were dumb. Where was it? Okay. How do I handle friends who still use? So, and I'm gonna kind of change this one just a little bit. So, we hear a lot. You have to change people, places, and things, right? And I understand when people say that, like in the correct context, that is correct and that makes sense. But there's a but to that. It's like, should I be hanging out at my dope dealer's house? No, I need to change that. But I have to understand what the real problem is. The real problem is not my drug dealer. The real problem is me. Right.
Well, yeah. And so the question was, how do you
handle people who still use?
handle people who still use?
I get. Let me change it a little bit. How do you handle triggers? Because that's basically what that's asking.
Yeah.
How do you handle things that trigger you?
I don't. I hate that question. I don't believe in triggers. I believe in excuses, right? I don't believe in triggers because I don't have. I would use over anything.
Yeah.
Literally because I was breathing. Like, so if you're bringing up the triggers, and
Yeah.
I just don't let myself mentally buy into triggers because it's just an excuse for me to use, right?
It is a long-term excuse.
Yeah.
So short-term, so the reason why that is taught in rehabs, right? Because that's where it comes from. To be honest, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's taught is because early on in sobriety, if we can keep you away from slippery places and slippery things until you get your feet on the ground, you have a much better shot. But the problem with it is that people think that is a long-term solution to their problem.
Right.
And it's not.
Yeah.
Because you can't go through life avoiding everything that's unpleasant or that makes you want to use.
Yeah.
And that's just not sustainable.
Right.
It's real life.
So me just getting back to the question is was how do you deal with friends who still use?
Yeah.
I don't.
Right.
Is the simple answer.
Yeah.
I don't have I don't have friends that use.
Right.
I don't have friends that, I guess it depends on, there's people that are a part of my life that, yes, they do drink normally,
Right.
or they do smoke weed, but I guess I would consider some of them a friend, but I'm not going to hang out with you.
Right. So like,
If I see you out, yes, I can talk to you, but I'm not gonna go, even at 4 years sober. I think if I was hanging out with them, if they were smoking a joint around me, that would make me feel some type of way that I'm gonna do it too. I don't.
right.
But I get to choose who I associate with
Right.
and who I have in my life, and I don't have those people directly in my life, and that's my choice.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. Nothing. No. If you can smoke weed, cool. I don't have no problem with that.
Right.
I don't want to hang out with you while you do it, or I get to choose today who's a part of my life. And obviously that's not healthy for me to be like, I'm going to go hang out with such and such and watch the ball game with them while they just smoke and drink. Like,
Right.
I just don't want to do that.
So sometimes these things are unavoidable,
Yeah.
right? Because in this situation, it's a little different for me than it is for you, because my wife is not in recovery,
Right.
right? So like, what am I supposed to do? Divorce my wife because she drinks?
Right.
No, that's crazy.
Mhm.
Like it's not her responsibility for
Mhm.
my disease.
Yeah.
So I have to get to a place to where that problem can be removed,
Mhm.
so that I can be around those things. We went to a Halloween party last night. Pretty much everyone there is drinking except
Yeah.
me. And it's fine.
Mhm.
It's not a problem. So I don't have to cut my family out of my life. I don't have
Yeah.
to do that, because that's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not what
recovery.
and that's not what I was
Oh,
getting at.
no,
Like,
I know. I know.
because I go
Um,
to places where my family
For
and
sure.
people are drinking,
Yeah.
and
Now,
I have
am
family
I
members that smoke weed. Like, it doesn't bother
am
me.
I
It is what
hanging
it
out with
is.
my old using buddies that
Right.
still use? No. No. And the answer is the same as you. I don't.
Mhm.
If they reach out to me, if they need something, can I still lend a hand or something like that? Yeah, but I'm not seeking that. Like, I'm not trying to go sit on their couch and
Right.
watch a game while they're doing things. But I also have to understand that I'm not going to be able to avoid
Yeah.
these
I think
things.
I think it comes back to being in certain like we can go anywhere and we
Exactly.
can do anything.
That's kind of the
So
point that I was trying
Right.
to bring up with this question, is that we can do these things.
Mhm. Yeah.
We don't have to
it's all about our
put this
motives
bubble
while
around.
we're
Yeah,
there.
I don't have to have this bubble around me the rest of my life. That
Right.
Alcohol, I can't be near it.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's just like you said, it's a little different as far as our wives are concerned, because my
Right.
wife's in recovery, yours is not. When I go to places where people are, we have family get-togethers, if people are drinking or whatever it is, I'm there for the right reason. I'm there
Right.
to spend time with family,
Exactly.
right? Which in turn is the same as you. Like
Right.
if you go somewhere and your wife is having a
Yeah,
drink
have
or
a
whatever, it
legitimate
is,
reason to be there.
you have a legitimate reason to be there.
Yeah.
But when it comes to using friends, I don't
Right.
have them.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, I
I
mean,
can be friendly
yeah,
and still have some type of relationship with you, but it's not going to be a type of relationship where I'm coming to hang out with you.
yeah, they're friend in the aspect of I love you,
Yeah.
I want the best for you,
Mhm.
but I'm not seeking
Right.
an actual friendship.
Mhm.
Like that's different. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up because a lot of times I think early on in recovery, people think that we can't do those things.
Right.
That was one of those fears that ended up not being true.
Mhm.
Is that well, I'm never going to be able to have fun. I'm never going to be around people that drink. How am I going to go to any functions? How am I going to go? My daughter plays drums and they have shows at bars, you know, and I go there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes people look at you like, is this going to bother you? I was like, no,
Right.
I'm here to watch my daughter. I'm not here to steal some kind of enjoyment out of your drinking. Like, I'm not here for that. That's not why I'm here.
Right.
You know, I'm here to see my daughter, you know, so that's kind of what I was trying to get at is that, you know, these things early on, while they may trigger us because we're still sick, that's why. It's because you're sick, not because,
Right. Yeah.
not because it's because Walgreens is open, you know, like that's where I bought my alcohol. Like I can never go into Walgreens again.
Right.
You know, I remember there was a time early in recovery, I walked down, I was at Kroger, and somehow I stumbled down the beer aisle. I made a wrong turn, went down the beer aisle,
Right.
and I made it through the gauntlet of the beer aisle, right? And I got to the end of it, and I made my way back over to the eggs or wherever I was trying to get to, and I was like, this staying sober thing's pretty easy. You know, like I made it through here, and it's because my willpower was sufficient on that day.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I thought, oh, this is easy, and then so now I can always do this. But I wasn't doing anything for my recovery at that time.
Yeah.
You know, so and then when I tried to go into those places, I wasn't armed with the facts about myself. I wasn't recovered. I didn't have God. I didn't have anything. And I went there and I got high,
Yeah.
you know, and so it's a totally different situation though when you have recovery and you encounter those kind of things. Totally different.
Yeah.
Totally
Absolutely.
different, you know. So there is hope for us,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day that we can be around these things but we don't. But I like what you said though, is that we get to choose who we have in our life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not tethered to the people that were met, you know, before we got sober,
Mm-hmm.
or even the people during sobriety.
Right.
You know, it's like sometimes we got to change things up.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine and acceptable. You know, if somebody has a problem with that, then probably made a good choice.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you know. So I don't know. You got any other thoughts?
No.
All right,
Mm,
cool.
good.
All right. I want to thank Allie for sending us those questions.
Yeah. They were
You
good
know.
questions.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for listening. We love all of you.